Hi, my name is Laura and I'm from Mawar Sharon Christian School. This time I want to tell you a story about someone who really loved adventures. His name was Carl Fredrickson. You know what? When he was a little boy, he often wore goggles and a helmet. You know why? Because he always imagined that he was a famous explorer in the world, exploring Grand Canyon, Mount Everest, and many more cool, challenging places on Earth. And one day, with his wife, Carl had a trip together to go to the Paradise Falls, which was in South America. They wanted to bring their house up there in the Paradise Falls. But something happened. Before he could even go to the Paradise Falls, his wife was dead. Carl was so sad. He was so alone. And he was getting older and older. Now Carl was an old man who had to live in a home for the elderly. Of course he didn't want to, because he still wanted to go to the Paradise Falls. So when two men came to his house to take him to the house for the elderly, something amazing happened. Thousands of balloons on ropes were coming out from the chimney. It was pulling out the house up to the sky. The garden hose went with the house up into the sky. People were amazed. A house floating in the air, above the heads and over the buildings. Carl shouted proudly from his floating house, "So long, boys! I'll see you again. I'll send you a postcard from Paradise Falls." Carl smiled and he was very happy because he realized that he was on the way to the Paradise Falls, the place that he imagined to be. Suddenly, he heard someone knocking on the door of the floating house. "Hi, Mr. Fredrickson, it's me, Russell." Carl was so shocked. Someone, a little boy, was standing on the porch in the floating house. And Carl shouted, "What are you doing out here, boy?" And then Russell, the little boy, answered, "I found the bird under your porch, Mr. Fredrickson, and it was like a mouse. So could you please let me in, Mr. Fredrickson?" Okay, just come inside. And after that, Russell went inside the floating house. And he saw a picture of something beautiful, a place, the Paradise Falls. Suddenly, shortly after, the sky became dark. It began to rain, and they were immediately in a terrible storm. Carl tried to move to steer the house away from the storm, but it was impossible. The floating house, moved from this side to that side, and the furniture fell over, and something hit Carl's head, and Carl fell on the floor. When Carl's eyes opened, he said, "Where are we?" And Russell, the little boy, answered, "Mr. Fredrickson, it's South Africa. I know it from a GPS. I know it. It's South Africa." And then Russell and Carl, they were so happy because they were now in South America and they were close enough to the Paradise Falls. Shortly after, the house floated down. There was a thick fog, so it was difficult to see anything. But slowly the fog disappeared, and Carl could see something very beautiful. It was the Paradise Falls. Carl smiled, and he was very happy because it was the place, the paradise. When they were walking to the place, to the paradise was, they met a giant bird. It was 13 feet tall, and it had beautiful colors too. On their way to the paradise was, they also met a bad guy, another explorer who had been looking for the giant bird because he wanted to take the giant bird home and show it to other people about the bird. But of course, Carl and Russell didn't want to, because they realized, they knew that the place for the bird was in jungle, not in a city. So they tried to keep and to save the bird. But of course, the explorer, his name was Charles Mons, of course he wanted to get the bird. So the bad guy, the explorer, shouted, "Get them!" He shouted to the fierce dogs that he had. "Come on, get them! Get the bird now!" And a lot of fierce dogs ran, chasing Carl and Russell, and of course the giant bird. They ran away with the house. The fierce dogs were getting closer and closer to the giant bird and Russell and also Carl. Go, go, go! They kept running, chasing Carl and also Russell. But the bird helped them to run. It could fly, right? So the bird helped them flying over the river. So the fierce dog, they fell over to the river, but Carl, Russell were saved because of the giant bird. But suddenly, there was a large net came down over the bird, and the bird fell on the ground. Russell and Carl ran to save the bird. Carl took out his knife and started cutting the net. And the bad guy, the explorer, shouted, "Get away from my bird! That is my bird! You get away from my bird!" Then Charles Mons, the explorer, burned Carl's home, the floating house. Carl could not believe what he saw. His house, his floating house, was burning. He quickly grabbed a blanket and started putting out on the fire. On the next day, Carl and Russell tried to save the bird. But the bird was in the bad guy's airship. It was not easy to save the bird because there were lots of fierce dogs who had been trained to obey their master, the bad guy, the explorer. Luckily, Carl could find the bird. Then they ran to save the bird. But when the bad guy tried to grab them, he fell down and down. He died. And the house was floating down too. And Russell felt sorry about that. So he said to Mr. Fredrickson, "I'm sorry about your house, Mr. Fredrickson." And Mr. Fredrickson replied, "That's okay, boy. It's just a house. I'm happy now because I could save you and I could save the bird too." Finally, Carl and Russell took the bird back to the jungle. Yeah, because it was the best place for the bird. And afterward, after they put the bird back to the jungle, with wearing goggles and a helmet, Russell and Carl back home together to their town. And that's the story about Carl and Russell. Thank you very much.